Back in the day, Square Enix, or Squaresoft as it was once known, set the standards pretty high when it came to RPGs. After shelling out hit after hit in the 90s, Square was on top of the role-playing genre. As the 16-bit era came to an end, Square was searching for the next platform to continue its long line of hot games. One particular game, however, went unnoticed during the transition to next-generation consoles in the mid-90s. And so in today's video, we'll be discussing Final Fantasy VI, the interactive CG game. Final Fantasy VI, the interactive CG game, also known as Final Fantasy SGI demo, was a short demonstration produced by Square using characters and settings from the Final Fantasy VI game. The game was produced using New Silicon Graphics Incorporated, Onyx and Indie 2 workstations acquired by Square. 3D models were made in Alias Power Animator and animated in Soft Image 3D. In an interview with video game designer Hironobu Sakaguchi, he stated, "In August of 1995, one of the US's largest CG conventions, SIGGRAPH, was held in Los Angeles. At that time, we were not sure what the next generation RPG game should look like. So as an experiment, we created a CG-based game-like interactive demo to be presented at the show. It focused on battle scenes that were 100% real-time and polygon-based. The demo was Square's first attempt into real-time 3D graphics, and many assumed it was a precursor to the new Final Fantasy title for the Nintendo 64, which also utilized SGI hardware. And this is one reason why many have referred to this game as Final Fantasy 64, but that is incorrect. The other reason for this misinformation was due to an article published in an October 1995 issue of GameFan magazine, which claimed that the demo was taken from an upcoming Final Fantasy game supposedly in development for the Nintendo 64. Said rumor was incidentally discovered as being completely false and unfounded in 1996 when Squaresoft announced that the next installment, Final Fantasy VII, was in fact being developed for the Sony PlayStation. Again, contrary to popular beliefs, this game was not being made for the 64DD. That is completely false. In the end, Squaresoft's decision to develop for the Sony PlayStation rather than Nintendo 64 simply came down to the fact that the Nintendo 64's cartridge has significantly lower storage space than the compared CDs. Now it's important to note that Square had not yet committed to Nintendo's consoles at the time of the demo's production, and much of the technology demonstrated in the demo was later put to use in the rendition of the full motion video sequences of Final Fantasy VII and subsequent games for the Sony PlayStation. If you watch the full demo, it even says on screen towards the end Final Fantasy VI. Now this demo made for the SIGGRAPH exhibition took about 20 megabytes. The developers thought the demo had a visual impact and there wasn't a question about which hardware Square would use in the future. To realize the promise of the demo, nothing but CD-ROM format would suffice. Now in a separate interview with the same designer Hironobu Sakaguchi, he also stated, "After Final Fantasy VI was completed, the staff had some free time. When we started thinking about what new hardware there was and what we wanted to do with our next creations, we created a movie as an experiment. At that time, we were working with the SG-1 workstation, which had rendering software designed for next generation hardware. For that reason, we thought it would be good if we would continue using the setup for our next game. With the SG-1 software, we could develop graphics for any hardware. However, for our purposes, we didn't want the frame-by-frame slow rendering that takes many hours. We wanted to develop a way to render the visuals in real time for our new game." Now let's talk a little about the game itself. The demo features Tara Branford, the guy with the blonde hair fighting with the sword, Locke Cole with dark hair fighting with the whip, and Shadow fighting barehanded. All these characters are obviously engaged in battle. Now the game is controlled largely through the mouse cursor movements. For example, moving the cursor in the shape of a star would summon a dragon to attack. The general gameplay, including the use of camera angles, timing, and animation, closely resembles that of Final Fantasy VII, and thus represents an artifact of the transition between the 2D and 3D eras of the Final Fantasy franchise. A video game footage of this demo is included in the making section of Final Fantasy VII Perfect Guide as an early work on Final Fantasy VII. A recording of the SIGGRAPH demo taking place was subsequently released on Square's Preview Extra, a PlayStation promotional disc containing both a demo of Final Fantasy VII as well as the aforementioned recording, and has since become widely available online. However, the playable demo itself has yet to be released in any form and is largely sought after by fans of the Final Fantasy series. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story behind Final Fantasy VI, the interactive CG game. Thank you guys for watching. Check out our other videos if you'd like, and remember to follow us on Twitter and give us any suggestions of videos you'd like to see on the channel. And I'll see you all next time.